Hey everybody, welcome back to the Knuckleball Experience Show. Um, Today our guest is going to be Jordan Scheiner. Jordan started pitching in high school. He pitched in summer collegiate leagues. He pitched in different independent leagues like Atlantic League, Can-Am League. I think collegiately he pitched in New Hampshire at Colby Sawyer. So anyway, welcome to the show, Jordan.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. So, Jordan, me and you, we met. We didn't grow up too far from each other. I think we met up once in back in New York, in Yorktown, and I think
hmm
at the time we were both pitching competitively in the independent ball, right?
hmm
That's
I
right.
can't remember how did what was the connection? How did we
I
meet
just
up?
I know you worked with Joey G, Joe Gannon, and
Okay.
I think I just sent you a message, and within the week we got together.
Yeah, no, that's Joe Gannon probably brings a lot of knuckleballers together.
Yeah, yeah, he's worked with a lot of them. So anyway, I'll start to show off how I usually do, and can you tell us about your first experience with a knuckleball, and where'd you see it, who threw it, and what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's going way back to when I was probably maybe like 12, 13, 14 years old. I like anyone would just mess around with it when I was playing catch. And as I got older, I started to throw it in games. When I pitched in high school, I used it a little bit more and then kind of became like a primary knuckleball guy when I was pitching in high school. I would throw it 70% of the time, 80% of the time, and then mix in some fastballs. And when I went to college, kind of the same deal. I went in actually as an infielder and then pitched. I went in as a two-way guy and played second base, shortstop, and would pitch as well. So kind of the same thing where I would mainly throw a knuckleball and then mix in some fastballs and found that I had some good success. So sophomore, junior, senior year, we kind of mixed out of the infield a little bit and then did more pitching and then yeah, kind of took off from there. When I started as a young kid, even throughout I would say the beginning of college, I didn't hold it like most pro knuckleballers hold it. I actually did it the easy way, which helped me learn it. I held it with three fingers, uh, right on that front seam, and I did not have anything on the side. I kind of just kept it there. It was good to learn it that way for me. It helped me kill spin. The tough thing was like I could easily throw it on the sidelines. Bullpen that was fine, but when you threw me in a game, I spun a little bit more for some reason when I would throw it this way, and then kind of changed it up after that, probably halfway through college.
Um, what would you say inspired you? Why? I mean, like you could have just thrown fastballs and just been a traditional pitcher, but I guess what inspired you to do that? Because it's not like and it's not an easy endeavor. So what inspired you and kept you going with the pitch through high school and college and stuff?
Honestly, I started to find success with it. I was not a person that had phenomenal throwing mechanics growing up. It wasn't anything that looked bad, but it just was not efficient. So I didn't throw as hard as most other people. I was probably topping out 75 on a fastball, and I felt like my cap was just there. So I started to find other ways to miss bats and get outs, and even since I was like 12, 14, 15, I just kind of went to the knuckleball and that worked. So
Was there someone like maybe your dad or your a teammate or just watching on TV that you saw it do it, throw it?
that's hard to even, I don't even remember anything. My dad might have brought up a little bit, but he didn't even really know. I think he might have thrown it actually, like when he talked about it, he literally like dug in with his knuckles and tried to throw it. So it kind of put the idea in my head. And then I started to mess around with it a little bit more. And when I was really young, I didn't really even do any research on it. Like I wouldn't know where to look. I kind of just started messing around and throwing it a little bit more and figuring out what worked. But Tim Wakefield for me, I grew up a Mets fan, so I wasn't exposed to Nesson or watching Wakefield throw really. So, and he was the only big knuckleballer at the time.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Yeah, so you already went over your grip there. So can you walk us through how maybe your approach with the pitch matured from high school to, towards the end of your career? Like, maybe like an example would like maybe in the beginning, you're maybe trying to make a move too much, or trying to strike everyone out, or how did your approach change with the pitch?
Yeah, so when I was in high school and I held it with three fingers, I kind of just floated it in a little bit more, and I wasn't pushing it, but I definitely I could have been throwing it harder. So when I got to college, I kind of pitched like that for 2 years. I would say freshman and sophomore year, I kind of just floated it in there, and then when I changed my grip to just the traditional right under the horseshoe, that's kind of when it took off a little bit. So that was, I would say, maybe like end of sophomore year in college. I started messing around with it a little bit. I got to throw with R.A. Dickey one spring training when I was down there for summer or for spring training for my college, and had the opportunity to meet him, throw with him a little bit, and he kind of pushed me in the direction of going the two finger way. So I was like, oh, okay. So I remember sitting in my little apartment in college, and just at like, you know, from 12 to 2 in the morning, I would just be throwing a two finger knuckleball against the couch for like hours just to get the feel. I'd sit in bed and I'd kind of just toss it up and down to feel what it felt like coming off those fingers. And then I started to just kind of mix that in when I was, anytime I picked up a baseball and I was throwing a knuckleball. After that, outside of a game, I'd really just go for a two finger look. Um, when I started with a two finger, when I really kind of changed over my junior year in college, I started to see a lot more success. I started to see more strikes. I saw I was able to kill the spin a lot better. And I got aggressive with it. I wasn't throwing it 100% effort, but I would say if I was throwing it 50% effort before, I'm now throwing it 75, 80%. Um, and that was good. I felt like I was missing more bats. I felt like I was throwing more strikes. There was less room for error. Yeah, and then I kind of carried that through college, or through college, and then into pro ball a little bit. I messed with a little bit of a different arm angle, just because I could throw a pretty good sidearm fastball from right here. So I kind of mixed this in a little bit, found some good success with throwing strikes that way, getting really good movement. So it's kind of that, my experience with it, it's changed over time like anything. And I would always find little tiny adjustments that I've made over the course of 15 years of throwing it that have helped me get better.
So going back to your grip there, why do you? I mean, I'm just thinking about it because that's how I started. I started with a four finger grip or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then did a little research, and all the guys are here. I had the same experience. Why do you think that is? I mean, maybe I thought in my head like if you just have two fingers, right? There's tension when you're gripping the ball like this, and if
Yep.
you got four fingers, I feel like that's how it was. I feel like there's more, there's more tension here, and just like we've all heard, the tenser you are, I feel like the slower you are, and I don't know. Do you think there's some validity to that?
I might be speaking out of my butt,
Yeah,
but I think it might be related to hand size.
hand
So
size. Yeah,
when we're young, obviously we have smaller hands.
yep.
If you think about trying to throw, I know you've probably done it, but you've tried to pick up a softball and you've tried to throw a two finger grip with a knuckleball, and it's not going to work. It doesn't happen. But you might have a little bit more grip on it if you have three fingers. So when we're young, we might have smaller hands. When we're starting to learn it, to feel what it is like coming off the hands, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the all I know is that when I made the jump to a two finger grip, when it was appropriate, it was the best thing I could have done.
Um, can you talk about dive into a little bit about your approach, like you know, when did you use your fastball? Did you change speeds with your knuckleball? Did you throw any other pitch?
Yeah, so I threw, it was a fastball, knuckleball, And then I had like a little bit of a curveball, really. It was kind of just like a little sidearm slider, and I'd mix in a sidearm fastball and then occasionally an overhand fastball. Uh, that harder stuff was really used as just a surprise me pitch.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd usually start a guy off for the most part with a knuckleball. I'd try and get a hit on him. And then if I got ahead 0-2, 1-2, I would kind of rear back and just try and let loose with a good knuck.
Hmm.
I started doing that probably later in life, like
Hmm.
kind of around pro ball is when I got up 0-2. I was just like, if I want to really make it dance, I'm just going to try and juice it up a little bit, still try to kill the spin and see if I can get some good movement on it. If it's a ball, it's a ball. If I hit the guy, it's whatever. But might as well try and surprise him a little bit. And that ended up working for me. When I got down in the count, I would throw. This is one thing that one of my summer collegiate coaches, a guy named Misha Dworkin, he was a bullpen catcher for a long time in at the major league level, and he played a bunch of years in independent baseball. So he was our field manager one of my summers, and he was like, man, why don't you just, if you get down, just like place a nice little fastball in the outside corner. Worst thing, they pound it down the line. You know, best case, they try and roll over on it because it's a good mix of speed. And that's what I found success when I would mix in that fastball. I'd really never go inside. I would just I try to put it on the outside corner. Didn't mean I could. Like if I wanted to go inside on a dude, uh, maybe early in the count just to surprise him, I'd throw a little fastball that kind of tailed in. But for the most part, if I got down, I'm throwing a fastball in the outside corner, and if he hits it for a base hit, that's what it is. Then I need to have a better approach next time, just to have a better execution of my pitches.
Yeah. Nice. That's pretty good. And we'll bounce back and forth with this. Can can you talk a little bit about your preseason, in-season throwing program routine? So like, did you long toss your knuckleball? Did you try to stay off the mound all the time? Did you throw against the wall? Did you only throw to catchers, squatting, or what did that look like preseason and in season?
Yeah, I mean, preseason was probably what it is for any other pitcher. Uh, I did definitely throw against the wall a little bit more than anyone else, just because, throwing a knuckleball, we feel like we can do that. It's a good way to get easy feedback. So I kind of would do that throughout the entire winter. I'm not throwing full bullpens really. I'm kind of just throwing against a wall, keeping my arm loose, doing, just mixing up with slight little variances in my grip to see what works. And I did notice that if I didn't throw it for 3 months, it was a little bit harder to get back into it. So I always wanted to kind of keep throwing it. As far as like a pre-game routine, I would say, just I would start throwing knucks just 10, 15 feet away. It helped me actually loosen up my arm. I felt like I had a little bit of the yips, especially when I was close, just playing catch. So I didn't have that when I threw a knuckleball. So I kind of warmed up with a knuckleball. As I really got my arm stretched out, I would mix in a couple fastballs, and then as I really stretched it out, I'd long toss a little bit with the knuckleball just to see if I could kill the spin and really get out in front on it. Um, I would say I threw to a catcher probably 3 times a week. The more the better. If I could throw to a catcher every day, I would, but most catchers, it's
They don't wanna.
you got to pay them
Yeah.
to catch you 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So what
So,
about you? Were you throwing to a catcher a lot?
oh yeah. I mean, that's what I felt was beneficial because, right, you're dealing with a slope. I mean, it's such a field thing. I would try to get off the mound as much as possible, even if I was only throwing 50 feet. And I asked one of my pitching buddies, "Hey man, you just stand up, just catch a couple." Yeah, man, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get off the mound, start short, like you were doing, short 10 feet, and just work back and then off the mound. Uh, I felt like that was the best. for feel, right? It's a feel thing. Everyone talks about it. It's a common thread. It's a feel thing, and you have to replicate, I feel, as best as you can.
Yeah, no,
So
you're right about that. And the situations you need to try and replicate. So I realized that I started to struggle, or at least something that I struggled with was feeling confident on the mound with throwing strikes as soon as a guy stepped in. So I started incorporating things into my bullpens where I'd have someone stand in. I'd put two buckets there just so I had something in my vision to put pressure on me to throw strikes. You know, when a body steps in and you see that in your vision, it's like, holy shit. You know,
yeah,
that your brain starts racing a little bit, and the last thing you
yeah,
want to do is throw a ball or hit a guy. And
yep,
you don't put like I feel like it definitely helped me to put myself in game situations as much as possible, even from a count perspective. Okay, I'm throwing a little bit here, like I got to throw a strike here. I need to, like, I'm 2-0 and I need to throw a knuckleball for a strike. What can I do?
yeah. And I've talked to other people about this, like knuckleballers, and one guy, he's like, "Oh, I don't need that. I just throw to a catcher." But like, I'm with you on that. Like, keeping yourself accountable by keeping counts, putting a batter in there, and even um, changing your looks up. Like for me, if I left the game for the first time, for me to change my looks, 1,000 throw, or 1,000 2, 1,000 3, 1,000 throw, just like you were talking about, like it wouldn't go very well, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
sad. But I didn't really start doing this towards till I was in my late 20s, you
Mm.
know, because it's not cool. It's not it's not sexy to do a pickoff move in a bullpen. Who does that? Like,
Yeah,
what? Like, I,
but
I
you're right.
wouldn't throw
Yeah.
it, obviously, but psychologically, like, it helped me out. And I've talked about this before, but yeah, keeping counts, putting a batter in there, change your looks. Some people pick it up quick, and if they do, good for them. But I
Yeah,
feel
that's
that's
something I didn't do enough of was holds. I remember
yeah,
pitching a game in I was on Trois-Rivieres and we were playing
yeah,
against Rockland.
yeah,
I just joined them. They called me like the night before. I think I was at
yeah,
a house party when I was like 22 or
yeah,
23.
yeah,
And they were like, "Hey, we need a starter for tomorrow. Like,
yeah,
you want to do it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So ended up starting against Rockland. It was like their Irish night. They probably had 5,000 people there. And I was staying in shape, but I wasn't pro ball ready by any means. But I ended up having a good outing. I think I gave up like, you know, 3 runs over 5 innings or something.
yeah,
But one of the things was that guys were just starting to run all over me. Like, guy got on first base and he was taking second just because I was a little slow to the plate, and I was not mixing up my looks or holds. And halfway through the game, manager sat me down and he was like, "You got to do something, man. Like, throw in a hold." I was like, "Okay," but it was difficult. Like, sitting there and literally holding here for 6 seconds until someone calls time, it feels like an eternity. That's something that if I practiced a little bit more in my bullpens, it probably would have helped. And that's for any pitcher, not even knuckleball guys.
there's a rhythm to the game, right? And it's in the bullpen you get a rhythm, right? And it's easy, go go go, and fire it in there. But yes, you have to be comfortable with that hold. You know what I mean? There's an internal clock, and if you're throwing it off from practice to the game, it's like, oh, hold on here, and things start getting out of control. You start spinning it, throwing balls, and I
Yeah.
think that's key. Um, talk about, I don't know, did you try to work quick though in general? Like, were you like
Yeah.
mingling around the mound, or did you just
No.
go straight back to the mound and get the ball and go?
Yeah, no, I worked quick. I don't know if it was like a nervous thing or what, but get the ball, got in the mound, got my sign, and just I always worked quick. I didn't really have any pre-pitch routine. I kind of just got it, picked up my sign, and tried to keep it going as much as possible because I knew that, like, shoot, as a knuckleball pitcher, you can either have a really quick inning, like a 5 pitch inning, or you could be out there for 15 minutes. And it doesn't mean that you can't have success with a 15-minute inning or a 20-minute inning, but you might just be throwing a lot of balls. You might be getting a lot of deep counts. And the last thing I want to do is keep my put my infielders on their toes, or my fielders in general, or I want to keep them on their toes and not put them on their heels, have them get bored out there and be like, oh, for 25 minutes,
Yeah.
like, so I tried to work quick to speed that up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, generally, we're going to throw a couple more balls than average pitcher, but if we can speed it up, they're going to be more ready, which means better plays, lower ERA, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Um, and I know we talked about this on the phone before, and we hit on it a little bit earlier here in terms of like you have to be a pitcher first. Like, we talked about on the phone, like just because you have a knuckleball doesn't mean, I got a knuckleball, I'm gonna shoot to the top. Like, you have to be well rounded. I think you have to be more well rounded than most pitchers. Can you talk about the importance of being a pitcher first and then
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you really do have to be. You got to work harder than anyone on the team, because people are gonna doubt you. You throw, this is a trick pitch at the end of the day. This is not
Yeah.
something that people really do, but you can find success in it. So you really have to believe in yourself, and you need to get your managers to buy in. And the only way
Yeah.
you do that is with hard work and success.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, if you are you need to be an athlete at the end of the day. Like, if you have any dreams of playing professional baseball, you need to be able to move laterally and bend over and pick up a bunt and throw a guy out. Like, because they're going to find a guy that throws 92 that will get the same success from you as you, and he'll do that correctly. You got to be able to hold guys on. You got to be able to pick off, have a good pickoff move. If anything, there's just so much more to baseball than just throwing a good knuckleball. Like, and you got to be able to do it in a game. That's the biggest thing. Is you see a lot of people that mess around. They're like, oh, I've got a really good knuckleball, but as soon as they get on the mound, it's everything, implodes on them. So there's so much to think about when you're a knuckleball pitcher, because at the end of the day, you're still pitching. You're still playing the same game as everybody else around you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great to, throw on the sidelines and stuff. Everyone's got a good one on sidelines, but once you hit the game, so like for me, and what you would recommend for anyone learning to pitch, like go find the worst team in the league and say, hey, coach, I'd love to pitch for you, and just pitch. Because yeah, you need innings. You know what I mean? Don't think you have to go to like a Division 1 or I got to be on the best team. No, be the guy that's gonna get innings. You're gonna, there's a learning curve, and go get innings and learn. Like bullpens are great. Bullpens are important. Practice is important. You need it, but you need game experience because, like you said, that when that batter gets in there and it's play ball, the strike zone gets real small. Everything gets tougher. And you have to get comfortable working that position.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. You do need as much experience as possible. You're going to start when you go into whether you're throwing in college or professional baseball,
Yeah.
your mentalities manager might shift over a season. You'll
Yeah.
come in and you might be the mop-up guy. You might get a spot start to start, but who knows? As you start to have success, you'll pitch more. He'll put you in better situations. He might start you a little bit more frequently. He might use you as a middle inning long reliever.
Yeah.
I remember I was in college, I was having some good success, and they brought me in like the ninth inning to close a game instead of for a closer. They know that we can, for the most part, throw more than other people. We can throw a little bit more periodically and still have good success. So managers, once you kind of earn their trust, they're going to use you more. That's what it is.
Well, I got fresh on my mind going back to the fielding thing, right? The importance of being an athlete and being able to field. So I was fortunate enough to work with, Phil Necro, and he told me he hated running, but what he did tell me, for his conditioning, he would just do PFPs. He'd grab a coach, he'd go to the side field, he'd have him roll bunts, like for 20, 30 minutes, roll bunts, hit balls back to him, covering first, all those little things. And, you run from the pitcher mound to first, like, do that 20 times, you're going to be breathing pretty heavy. And he was a Gold Glove winner, right?
Yeah.
So let's not forget that. Yes, he was a great pitcher, but he was also a very good fielder. And I believe RA won a Gold Glove too, one of those years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was pretty athletic.
Yeah,
Wakefield, definitely in his heyday could move really well. I remember when I was in college, my junior and senior year, I would wake up at like 6 in the morning.
yeah,
I'd take a run down to the field and I would
yep,
just set up balls on the ground and practice breakdowns, like
yep.
sprinting to a spot, breaking down quickly, and throwing into a net. And that was part of my conditioning, because the only way I'm going to get better at that and be able to move my muscles a little bit faster is if I do it. So might as well might as well get it done.
Yeah, I feel like that's more, and everyone talks about functional training, like that's super functional. You're doing
Hmm.
the exact movement pattern. Like it's cool to have like a ladder and do box drills. Get a glove because it's different. Run with a glove. Get a glove on your hand
Hmm.
and your cleats from the mound down. You know, first baseline back to you, third baseline. Your routes to first. I think that's important. Those are the little things because you might get one out extra a game because you did that. You
Yeah.
shave that split second for your whatever runner on second, eighth inning, and the guy's trying to bunt him over. So
And
that
we
could be
know
a
how
game
important
changer.
an out can be.
Yeah,
As knuckleball guys, when we hang one pitch and we give up a jack or a double. Man, if we only made a pitch 5 pitches ago to get the previous kid out, then
yeah,
I'd be out of this. And it can all explode pretty quickly. And then just like that, you can get it back and you're right back, to success.
yeah. All right. Um, let's see here. How about can you talk about how maybe your mechanics changed through your career from high school to pro ball? Like, one that everyone talks about is staying in the hallway, right? Like staying linear to the plate, instead of coming around it. Can you talk about some cues that really helped you out through your career mechanically?
Yeah. Yeah. When I started to pick up, in high school, I wasn't even really cognizant about what my mechanics were. I kind of just picked up my knuckleball, I take my knuckleball grip and I would just kind of float it in there.
Yeah,
When I got to college, I definitely focused on mechanics a little bit more. I focused on my knuckleball mechanics
yeah,
because, in my opinion, um, you can easily fall out of good pitching mechanics when you're trying to throw a knuckleball. And so I'll touch back on that, but probably like sophomore, junior year in college, I was replicating R.A. Dickey a little bit more, kind of lift the leg, really start open up early, um, get my front foot planted before my back leg started to come through. And that helped me throw a pretty good knuckleball. Um, Occasionally I would kind of drift out here, found success out here. But in my opinion, I carried those mechanics all the way through pro ball. When I started playing men's league, and I really started to that's when I was working with college pitchers. I was pitching coach for the Bristol Blues from 2015 until 2021. So I had a good understanding. Like I knew mechanics, but I really started to dive into biomechanics and
yeah,
the training necessary for pitchers to throw hard. Looked at some of the top guys, the top programs like Top Velocity, like Driveline, just to kind of see what their programs were about, and got a lot of really good information about throwing mechanics in general. And I felt like I actually had more success when I started to naturally fix my pitching mechanics to make them a little bit more fundamental, a little bit more what a normal pitcher would throw. So I realized that as I bettered my pitching mechanics, like a big problem with when I was throwing my knuckleball is I really didn't have any lower half. I would lift up my leg. I would lift, I'd lift up my front leg, drop it down, open up, and my back leg would just be stuck way behind closed. There was no hip to shoulder separation. I had no back leg power. I was just kind of letting my dumpy body carry me through my mechanics, which worked for a knuckleball, but I only ever threw 75 miles an hour.
yeah,
Um, and I was throwing my knuckleball 60 miles an hour. So as I started to focus on proper pitching mechanics a little bit more, I was able to kind of mold them together. So I had a little bit more of a back leg drive. I had a little bit more of a front leg extension. When I land, I'm really starting to like throw my torso forward when I threw. That gave me extra velocity, both in my fastball and my knuckleball, which like I never thought of doing that in college. I kind of just was trying to place it in, or pro ball, I was kind of just placing it in there, and I was just super inefficient in my mechanics. And even look at probably Stephen Wright, R.A. Dickey, like those guys used to throw hard. They knew what good mechanics were. They were capable of them. And then they kind of mixed the two between their knuckleball mechanics and their traditional old fastball mechanics. And they were able to still be efficient.
Kind of go back what you said. You used the word place, right? I feel like, I don't know, for me, if I was like trying to place it, all right, let me just try to place it in there, versus approach like I'm throwing it at that dude. Like, a little more aggressive. Like there's a fine line between the two. There's a term like prayer pitching, like, oh, let me just hopefully this goes in there, versus I'm gonna beat that strike zone up. I feel, if you're too passive, it's just like everything gets kind of out of whack and balls, versus being aggressive, right? It sounds to me like in high school and early college, you were just kind of like, let me just place it in
I was praying a little bit,
just prayer pitching.
And then when I became more aggressive in late college and a little bit of pro ball, and then in like pretty high level men's league, I felt way more confident. Just like it was much better. I was using a little bit more fastball mechanics, but with a knuckleball grip, and just being super efficient with it, and getting more strikes, getting better movement, pounding the zone. It was good.
Yeah. So what's your opinion? There's a couple, things I've heard, talking about, guys talking about big chest versus, now you hit on it. Like, when I threw fastball, I was fastball guy, I was ripping down or whatever with my upper half, versus I was trying to get taller to allow my hand to stay through the ball, versus coming down. I had a tougher time to stay through the ball. I was still aggressive here versus here. What's your opinion on that? Like staying tall versus,
So I actually had a different experience. I could throw like decent knuckleballs up here, but in games, if I needed a quick fix, the more I got out front and finished down, the better movement I had, and the more likely I was to throw a strike, and the less spin it had. For some reason, all three were better. I had to finish. If I didn't finish, I feel like I'm just, it's not as much of a prayer pitch, but it had that vibe to it. So when I would finish down, I just felt confident. I felt like I was throwing the heck out of it.
Yeah, you were out front behind the ball.
Yep.
Your arm was beating your body.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I was just when I was finishing, I was finishing out front instead of being right here. I was down here more. Yeah.
I got you. What about talk about stride length, like effort wise? Like for me, one adjustment I made through my career is I didn't hit the go button, or at least I didn't think about hitting the go or getting aggressive until that foot hit, like my stride foot. So everything was a setup. Once my foot hit, then I got aggressive. When I first started, I was aggressive early. So like, maybe can you talk about that towards the end of your career? Were you aggressive early, like breaking hands out?
No, I was pretty slow. Well, remember that like I didn't have great high velocity pitching mechanics growing up, which is why I started to throw knuckleball in the first place. It made it much harder for me to like throw hard and efficiently as a grown adult, because I didn't focus on it as a kid. If I focused on having a powerful back leg drive, or a really efficient front leg where I throw all that power, up my body, I would throw harder, and I probably would have been able to make it work much better with a knuckleball.
Yeah.
I kind of just lifted up my leg, opened up my front leg, and just dragged my hips down the mound. I had a pretty short stride length, and for a knuckleball that might work to flip it over, But if I were to go back and go back into high school or even earlier, I'd really focus on my actual throwing mechanics, and then make it work with a knuckleball. Like I'm going to be able to throw more efficiently. I'm going to throw harder on
Okay.
everything. And then, it's when I got probably later into college, a little bit in pro ball, and then definitely after in men's league, I lengthened my stride a little bit, and I would just really work on trying to provide more power from my lower half. I wasn't speeding through my mechanics by any means. I wasn't getting super fast with my hands and trying to have things catch up. I still had a decent pace for that, but I
Yep.
just really focused on my lower half more, and that helped a lot.
I got you. So yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like you recommend someone learn to pitch. Like, hey, get a pitching coach. It doesn't have to be a knuckleball guy. Get a guy that knows mechanics, someone that's
Mm-hmm.
got a good track record in helping pitchers,
Mm-hmm.
and not knuckleball pitchers, but just pitchers. And be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is where I'm at. Help me out.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're still going to have to be athletic
Yep.
in your mechanics, and lifting up your leg and just having a stride half of what a normal pitcher had is it's not athletic. You're not gonna be able to throw hard with your fastball. You're not gonna be able to throw a decent pace with your knuckleball.
Yep.
You're right. I would advise learning solid pitching mechanics, or just I would advise learning solid throwing mechanics to start. Figure out the big concepts of what you want out of a high level thrower and incorporate those with a knuckleball in mind, and you'll probably have good success.
And then I don't know about you, but I mean, like video. I mean, heck, right now it's so easy to get video. Talk about the importance of getting video, because if you don't get, you can't watch yourself in the mirror as you throw it in the game. Like, can you talk about the importance of getting video, and that way, for a coach to look at and check it out?
Yeah, video's big just from a regular pitching standpoint. That's going to be completely separate from what you're getting as a knuckleball pitcher. That is very important in and of itself. But as a knuckleball guy, like what I would really focus on was my what my hand was doing. I wanted to see everything up here from here to there. That's where I got the most feedback. That's where I could figure out if I was on the side of it, if I was getting over the ball a little bit too much, if I was staying behind it a little bit too much. That's what I could figure out. One of the bigger things for me to help kill the spin is sometimes I would get a little too flippy. Um, when I really went with the kind of a more Wakefield style locked wrist and stayed there, it'd come out like that. And I was like, whoa, like
Yeah,
that's the thing about a knuckleball is you make the tiniest little change, whether it's a finger pressure or
yeah,
a grip thing, and it just changes it. You're like, okay, whatever I did just there, I need to remember that because that worked. And I would rely on video for that. I would want to get slow motion of everything that was happening up here. That helped me a lot.
yeah, yeah. Like I've talked about it before, but like, focus on. I don't know. It's not. You have to learn from your mistakes, but get like a highlight tape of you throwing well. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like if you watch yourself throwing well, you're more likely to repeat it. Not watching bad video or bad mechanics. Watch yourself throwing well, and maybe subconsciously you do it again.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally agree. And now most of what's good is that most games are live streamed.
Yeah,
If you're pitching at the collegiate level, it's probably going to
yeah,
be on video.
yeah,
It's way easier to film something on your phone and get instant feedback
yep,
30 seconds later in slow motion at a high
yep,
resolution. So
yeah,
it's it's way easier. I don't think any of the games that I pitched in when I was playing college or pro ball were live streamed. Like I don't
yeah.
even know if any of them. I had maybe a couple filmed just from what my dad was filming, but other than that, it's definitely much better now.
Take advantage of it. Nice. So we keep bouncing around. Can you talk to us about maybe, your toughest outing and maybe your best outing? One thing I want to share with people is like people learning is you know, I want everyone to be successful, but I mean, if you look at history wise, with like, for instance, Hoyt Wilhelm spent 10 years in the minor leagues,
Hmm.
a 10-year span, and he's a Hall of Famer now. Like, he didn't have instant success. I mean, even Necro, like those guys, I think Necro spent like 6, 7 years in a minor league. So like, can you talk about, maybe some of your tougher outings in the fact that when you're learning this pitch, you're gonna face some adversity with a pitch. Can you maybe touch on that and then also touch on some of your success, like
Yeah,
real life games?
yeah, it's like any pitcher, but it's actually magnified when you're a knuckleball guy. You're gonna fail a lot. Like it's what it is. You need to People say trust the process. You need to trust the process and trust the journey and stuff. But there have been games that I've finished pitching and I've just gotten like shelled, and
Yeah,
nothing was working. And I was like, is this really right for me? Do I wanna embarrass myself, and should I
yeah,
just take the cleats off now? And that feeling goes away, the next day, a couple hours
yeah,
later. But the feeling of feeling alone, it sucks.
yeah.
But that being said, it doesn't matter when you go back out the next day and you have a hell of an outing. So I remember there was one game I was pitching up in. It was in a summer. It was in the Future Collegiate Baseball League in like 2012, and I think it was like a decently close game. I was going on like my third inning of pitching, and I don't think I gave up a run yet. And this kid from UMass Lowell comes up. He's like 6'5", he's massive. He's one of the best hitters in the league at the time.
Yeah,
And I just float one in there, and he hits it like 440 feet,
yeah.
to left center. And that ball's probably still going now. And and that's the thing about being like a knuckleball pitcher, is that you're going to need to be prepared to fail, because it can all go to hell very quickly. But for me, like, the more I could find confidence in myself and believe in myself during a game, the much more comfortable I felt. I remember I had good success. There's a couple of games that I had good success. I wasn't even really thinking about anything. I would go out there, I just kind of throw the pitch, and I was locked in, but not like I was focused, but not in the sense that it was stressing me out. Um, so I was pitching. I think I had a game up at Trois-Rivieres, or I was playing for Trois-Rivieres against Rockland, and I think I had like maybe given up one hit through 5 innings, and then in the fifth inning I gave up a 3-run jack, and I was like, okay, whatever, like that's okay. But I know for those first 5 innings, I just felt comfortable. I felt confident, and you kind of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry, my headset died. But I was pitching a game against Rockland, and had a pretty good outing. I think I was like, I'm in my fifth inning, maybe gave up one or two hits at the time, and then I gave up a 3-run jack, just like let a pitch go. It was a short porch at right center, but up until then, I felt great, and
Yeah.
that's just that stuff's gonna happen, and as long as you're feeling confident, like, it changes everything. If you put stress on yourself as a knuckleball pitcher, it makes it so much harder to kill the spin. You start to place it a little bit more. It's tough.
An overthrown knuckleball, I feel, is trash. You're gonna start spinning it. You're gonna start what's the word? Yeah, throwing it for balls. Like, you can overthrow a fastball, be okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you try to muscle up a knuckleball, like, it just starts spinning out of control. And kind of what you were talking about, like, approach is like, and it's not, I'm not saying this, different guys work for different things and stuff, but just like going out there, it's easier said than done, but like going out there and just having fun, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna go out there and have some fun. I'm gonna get this guy, like, maybe
It's
that
fun when you're
approach.
winning too. Makes it
Yeah,
much easier to be relaxed when you're having success.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So like, and maybe like when you give up a jack there, like, hey, so what? Next pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So what? Next pitch. Like, make your adjustment. Okay, did I throw a good pitch? Yeah, I threw a good pitch. So what? Now, if you throw in the ball, spinning and stuff, like, yeah, find your adjustment, but it's don't go, short-term memory, next pitch. I think that's
Short-term
important.
memory, yeah, and you still need to have grit as a pitcher. You got to have more grit than anyone else. when you start to fail like that, you just gotta be like, all right, what can I do to get through this outing? Just like any pitcher would do it. What, do I need to mix it up a little bit more? Yeah. Do I need to, is there something in my mechanics? Like, do I need to just take a second and clear my head? What can I do to have better success here? Because you're going to need to do it. Like if you want to play pro ball, they don't take that, you got to have success. So you'll be on a bus home after that game.
Absolutely. Just going back, you got to be a pitcher first. You got to be a competitor. You got to compete. You got to do all the other things right. Can you talk a little bit about I don't know, holding runners on, like you hit on it a little bit, but maybe just talk about it a little bit more in terms of changing your looks and picks.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, when you throw a knuckleball, you got to expect that guys are going to think they can run on you because they know most of the time that a pitch is coming in slower than any other guy. It definitely takes more time for a 65-mile-an-hour pitch to get to home plate than it does for a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. So that being said, one thing I learned, a little bit in college, but really started when I was playing pro ball, is that when you're getting these guys that just fly, that know how to take bags because they're elite players, you need to find ways to keep them close. You need to mix up your looks. The best thing that I learned was a good hold. Even if I just held the ball in my glove until someone called time, that worked, which was fine. Half the time I didn't even need to pick over. That being said, I really worked on my pickoff move because I needed that. I threw, I did the one where I didn't come set yet and I would throw from down here. That one I did a lot. I did one where I just came set and I'd throw from up here. Super important, just like it is for any other pitcher, but it's more important for us. You need to be able to pick guys off at second base. Third base doesn't matter, but you need a good move at second base and a good move at first base. You need good communication with your infielders. When you were, have you ever gone to pick a guy up and you come set in your glove and you have a knuckleball grip? Have you ever thrown a knuckleball to first base?
No.
No?
No.
I've done that once or twice.
I usually, and that's a good point. Like I didn't grip it. So I got a glove here. I would come set, right? Get my sign, come set. I would have the ball like this, kind of like all I had to do is this.
Yep.
So I'd have it set up like this, just real casual. I'd look and then I would probably grab it like, I don't know, maybe like a split second, maybe a second before I'd come throw. I wouldn't I felt like if I kept the grip early, maybe I got tense or whatever, I try to keep it loose or whatever. So I forget, that was a good question. I forget who I asked, but yeah, I wouldn't grab it till late. So if I was picking, before I threw the ball, I would know I was picking. I would say to myself, hey, on 3, we're picking.
Yep. Okay.
Now, it wasn't always like that. I used to be, I don't think I was ever the best, but that's what I tried to do is I'd come up with a preset plan before I even got signed, going on 1, going on 2. Obviously, you have to adjust mid-game. If your catcher calls pick or whatever, then you got to make the adjustment.
Yeah, I remember I was always I would preset before I went to my glove. So I'd kind of, or I'd set early. If I did it in my glove, really, I felt like my forearm flexed and they could see what was coming. So I either had to mess around a lot to show that I was, possibly throwing a fastball, possibly throwing a knuckleball, or just get it in my hand early, pre-grip, and kind of go to my glove. I remember, there were a couple times I got really good at being in a knuckleball grip and switching to fastball mid pickoff and still having a good move.
Okay.
And then there was maybe 2 or 3 times throughout my career that I threw a knuckleball very slowly over to first base because I'd start it and then I'd just and they'd be like, "Did you just throw a knuckleball?" I was like, "Sorry."
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Nice. So, can you getting towards the end here? What would you tell somebody? Maybe 2 or 3 things, best piece of advice you can give to somebody that's starting out with a knuckleball. Maybe they're in college and maybe they've messed around with it and they're like, you know what, I really want to start throwing this competitively, where I'm throwing it like 80%, plus, percent of the time. What advice would you give them?
Now look, if you asked me if you asked me probably 10 years ago, I would have given you different advice. But
Yeah.
you ask me now, I would say that having solid pitching mechanics is a must. Like you need, it's a mix of athleticism and solid, efficient pitching mechanics. That's got to have that, because you can dial it back a little bit to
Yeah.
fix your knuckleball or to work with your knuckleball mechanics. But
Hmm.
if you're trying to learn like how to throw a ball hard, whether it be a
Hmm.
knuckleball or a fastball, harder, I'm not saying you got to throw 90, but you want to, it helps to throw 80, 85 for a fastball with a
Hmm.
good 70-mile-an-hour knuckleball. You need good mechanics to do that. I would say number two is put yourself in game situations as much as
Yep.
possible, whether
Yep.
that be throwing to a catcher, whether, when you're throwing to a catcher, put a body there, have a friend stand there, put a couple
Yeah.
buckets, get one of those big plastic bodies so
Yeah.
you can see what it looks like, because it's totally a different vision. I
Hmm.
could easily, if I had a wide open area, I have no problem like throwing, because
Loose.
I'm loose. It's good. I'm not going to hit anyone,
Yeah.
it's just me and a guy playing catch. But you had a
Yeah.
body there and you're like, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh
Yeah.
shoot. The last thing I want to do is let it rip a little bit too close to him. Um,
Yeah.
and I would say for number three is that you really just gotta like you do need to trust the process. It's going to be a long journey. It's not going to come overnight. And anyone, you're going to say something?
I was gonna say, like, you should. You're concerned about yourself in 3 years, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm sucker right now for myself 3 years from now, kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. Anyway.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Um, if I like there's some times that I'm like, oh man, I wish I didn't give it up. Like I'm starting to get things right. I wonder if I could go back and throw that pitch competitively. I'm 31 now. It's unlikely that I would do that just because my life's in a different place now. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean I haven't thought about it. And all the things like when I was 20, the something that kept me through, or 18, something that kept me through the next 6 years of throwing a knuckleball at a high level was just like having faith that I didn't suck, despite me sucking sometimes. Because you're gonna get a lot of adversity, whether it's from a coach, whether it's from other players, whether it's from just the experiences that you have from your on field experience, like your actual outcomes of games. You just need to trust that you're going to get a little bit better each time. You're not going to regress too much, and even if it's one step back, you want to try and take 2 steps forward. You get a little bit better with your mechanics, get a little bit better with your approach and mindset. Yeah, if I really thought about that stuff when I was like 18, I think I definitely would have gone a little bit farther and pitched a little bit longer.
Um, Another thing I just thought about, you're talking about like view in terms of, the hitter and stuff in there. When you were on the mound, were you like, some guys like really zero in on the catcher's glove, or maybe real broad where I'm just whatever? Did you have did you have sights when you threw? Like, were you trying to throw the catcher's mask, the glove? What was your sight?
Yeah, I would mix in between. I'd kind of mix in between the glove. And here's something that I don't recommend, but I don't know why I do it sometimes. Is I'll look at the hitters. If it's a righty hitter, I'll look at his left shoulder. I don't know why. I
Huh.
know that my outcome is I'm not hitting him. I'm still
Yeah.
like throwing a pretty good pitch, but for some reason, and that's only on a knuckleball, I'll zero in on his left shoulder. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
anyone can tell me why I'm doing that, like I said, I don't recommend it for people, but it's something that I did and still found a little bit of success with. But yeah, I was mainly like look at the glove, and occasionally I'd look at the mask, but for the most part it was in the center of the zone.
You just have the catcher set up in the middle.
Yeah, did you ever were you a middle guy, or did you ever try to have a catcher set up on the outside corner, or No.
I would just have them set up down the middle, and I throw it at the top of the zone because I knew it was going to break down.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that ball because a hitter, just getting feedback. I wanted it to start at the top of the zone, so he was ready to hit. And if it broke late, it was a ball. I might have got a swing versus starting it middle low. They're probably a little more passive. They're like, all right, we'll see where this ends up. That's what I tried to do, not necessarily what I did every time, but yeah, start at the top of the zone, get the hitter in the box. All right, I'm going to hit this, and maybe get him swinging, at balls sometimes. So
What
that was my
situations
approach.
did you throw your your fastball?
That's a good question. If they took a lot, if you could just see it in them, and they're just like, all right, dude. Or if I, walked one or two guys, I'd bury a fastball in there.
Would you go inside, outside, kind of really anywhere you'd let the catcher call it?
I would just, I think if you could throw in, like, in a game, if you throw a one fastball 0-2 in, great. Don't get in the habit of it because you think about it, 80 miles an hour in the hands is quicker than 80 away. 80 away, they can just slap it,
Mm-hmm.
but 80 on the hands after 65 is a bigger adjustment. If you
Yeah.
can do that, do it. But I would not get in the habit of doing that. I would leave that to once, maybe twice a game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you got to have it in you. You need to be able to
yeah,
throw to both sides. But
yeah,
for me, most of the time when I'm throwing a fastball, I'm kind of just flicking it over the outside corner.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you just want to be different. Obviously, I feel like you got to stick with your bread and butter, keep the feel, keep the rhythm, or whatever. But in terms of fastball, like, some pitching coaches, if you threw a 0-2 fastball and you give up a hit, you'd probably be kicking yourself, and the coach would probably be kicking you. But you get them out, and you do it once a game. Every other time you had a 0-2 throw a fastball, like, and you get them out, like, yeah, that's great. I think you'd be surprised. But yeah,
I
just being
gave
different, no routine. Try not to get in a routine.
I gave up more hits over the course of my entire college, pro, even men's league career on fastballs.
Yeah,
When I would try to just like catch or call a fastball, and even if I located it well, I was not every time, but I would say like 20% of the time, 25% of the time, which is high for me,
yeah,
I'm giving up a hit.
yeah,
Most of my hits are not on knuckleballs.
yeah. And let me just go back to the listeners. I'm not telling you to throw 0-2 fastballs. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying once every 50 times you're in the 0-2 count, like something like that. So don't
I mean,
get
we
that
both froze
twisted.
guys. It's okay. It's okay to do that sometimes. Like if you have a feeling that you can freeze a guy on 0-2, then go
Yeah,
for it. And if you
yeah,
give up a hit, then okay, it didn't work. But like
yeah,
you don't know until you try it. And that's the thing is that if you're throwing a 65-mile knuckleball and you throw hard, you can pop it in at 85, you're probably gonna freeze that kid.
yeah,
So yeah, no, you need to be able to throw just like any pitcher. You got to be able to throw any pitch in any position at
yep.
any point in the game.
Changing speeds with a pitch. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Charlie Huff. He was. Hopefully, I'm getting the story right, but Sandy Koufax went up to him and he was like, "Hey, you ever think about changing speeds?" And Charlie's like, "Oh," and I forget the explanation, but that
Mm-hmm.
was, yeah. Then he started changing speeds with a pitch. I believe that was the story, and that's what he did. Like I've seen video of Charlie Huff. I mean, throwing 55, go off the screen stuff. It was pretty comical. Getting guys out though,
I feel like Dickey did that a little bit.
Yeah,
He would occasionally throw like a really slow knuckleball at like 55, and you're like, whoa, but it
yeah,
worked,
yeah, yeah. Changing up. Pitching is movement, velocity, changing timing, hitting's timing. If you can change their timing, you don't have to throw a great knuckleball, but if you can change timing, you
Yeah.
can throw a little spinner up there at 55 and get a rollover. I feel like,
The amount of times that I did that in college,
yeah,
even in a little bit in pro ball, where it would come out like a friggin' changeup, and I'm like,
yeah,
but it would still move a little bit, but guys
yep,
were off balance and they swung
yep,
through it or they rolled over. Yeah, changing
Yeah.
it's massive for any pitcher, especially a
You
knuckleball
don't
guy.
have to
Got to
be
be able
so
to change.
perfect with a pitch then.
Yep.
It's going to give you, you don't have to throw great moving stuff all the time. If you throw it a little bit harder or a little bit softer, it doesn't have to have that great movement. It could get guys out with, spinners, balls that are spinning. So
What's your like? Are you still in the knuckleball community? Do you ever work
I
with
haven't thrown in
guys?
like 2 years. Man, I love the pitch. I like following guys. Mickey Janis is, last guy in the big leagues, and
Hmm.
hopefully he gets signed this year. But I don't know. I might pitch this year, in the local men's league and stuff here in Greenville, South Carolina. Pretty competitive league. Palmetto Baseball Association, PBA, shout out. But yeah, so I might go back this year. I just I got married and just been busy, with a house, buying a house and stuff. But
Mm.
I love it. It's just
You should play more baseball.
priorities.
You know,
Yeah, I should.
definitely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
play in a
it's fun.
Sunday men's league at
Yeah,
9 a.m. every Sunday. Once
yeah,
from like April through October, and I love it. It's just
yeah,
it's fun. You know.
yeah. It's good. It's good camaraderie. Keeps you motivated. To stay in shape, and yeah, it's a good thing. So, um, nice. Well, Jordan, is there anything I haven't covered that you want to talk about with a pitch? In terms, approach, mechanics. I don't know, guys. Mentality with a pitch. I don't know.
Honestly, not really. I think we're all good. That's yeah. I mean, shoot, we've been talking for like a good hour.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, Jordan, if there's a kid in the Northeast there that wants to that's interested in the pitch, that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, definitely. I I'm in Connecticut, so if anyone's interested in throwing a little bit more and just learning, I feel like I might have a couple of things to offer and help with. I've definitely made a lot of changes over the course of my knuckleball career that mainly for the good. So I might have
Yeah.
a word of advice or two.
Okay. Awesome, man. Yeah, and that's another goal with this project is not everyone knows who I am. Like, we weren't Ari Dickey, Tim Wakefield or whatever, but I feel like, I want to build a network with this so they can get in front of, people. And I feel like that's invaluable, getting in front of somebody that's done it, has experience with it, instead of just talking about it, over the
Mm-hmm.
phone. So, yeah, just to build a network. So I think
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah. No, this is awesome. I very much appreciate you having me on. I haven't talked
Yeah.
knuckleballs in a long
Yeah.
time, so it's good to do that.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I'm probably going to want to go outside and throw now.
It's snowing where I am, so
Oh, really?
yeah.
Dang. All right. Well, Jordan, man, I appreciate your time, dude. And yeah, maybe in the future here we'll do some maybe short tip drills, where
Yeah.
maybe you talk about, 2-3 minute video talking about, something mechanically that helped you out, where I can get you out in the field and
Yeah.
you
Do a
can
little bit of
demonstrate
video.
what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
That'd be awesome.
All right, Jordan, man. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks, Zach. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you.